We now once again have to go over to Warwickshire because what has gone on over a very simple issue of flags, I think, has suddenly set a very, very worrying precedent. And that is the simple idea that the reform councillors here, again, in a minority government, have decided they are going to take a power from the council executive and give it now to the chairman of the council in the offices. So it's going to be up to him now and his discretion, which basically means Reform UK is in control of which flags get a nod or not to what can fly. And at the end of the day, worrying, of course, because flags at the end of the day are a political symbol. It is pretty much a display of power, etc., etc., etc. Choosing which flags to fly as which not is just a sentence just as strong as message. For example, ever since they came into power, the Ukrainian flag hasn't been flying as a show of solidarity with the Ukrainian people, given the fact that the UK people consistently, out of all the European peoples, have a very, very high favorability rating of supporting Ukraine and their current ongoing struggles against Russia. It's weird why all of a sudden they would just decide to take that down. But the worrying thing is here, and I will keep on pointing this out. They are taking a power away from the council executive, and if they are willing to strip such an inconsequential power away from a council boss, this now raises further questions of, well, let's say they don't like a decision that the council boss might make down the line, or maybe a council officer or something like that. Then all of a sudden, what other powers are they going to start stripping from council officers? All of a sudden, this simple issue potentially can open up a massive can of worms. But we're going to get into this because this, honestly, not only is that a significant problem, probably down for later down the line, because as far as I am aware, the way in which this bill was worded and passed does sort of imply they can strip other powers away from council officers, which is quite worrying in many, many regards. But we're going to have a look at this because this is a continuing issue. I think that they are now going to replicate in other councils. This is grandstanding in the highest order. These flags, as far as they're concerned, should be left, honestly, up to like the council officers. Shouldn't be the ones, they get the ones to make the decision because, well, they are going to use it for political purposes. Trust me on this one, we're going to see that very, very plainly, literally in just a matter of months. But anyway, I want to get onto this because we're going to cover a story from the BBC, but also the Warwickshire World, because they cover it in a bit more detail about what has gone on here. So before we go on into that, in fact, we might just cover the Warwickshire World one, to be honest. I think it's actually, yeah, we will. Screw it. We'll just share this one instead. Yes, I think the Warwickshire World one did a lot more coverage on it, to be honest. I think they did better. But again, that's local news for you. That's why you should support them. Anyway, before we get on into this, please do, of course, remember, as always, to click the like, share, and subscribe button. And, of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, the one of today's link called Buy Me Coffee, the YouTube thank you button, the Patreon page, the YouTube membership, all that good stuff down below. So, as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. And, of course, as always, don't forget to ring the bell as well so you get notifications of when we go live. And, of course, don't forget to check your YouTube settings on this, that you are not in restricted mode on that one. So, let's go on into this, because this, I think, could have big repercussions down the line. And I think councillors should be asking, if they are willing to strip this power, what other powers might then suddenly deciding they want and to take away from council officers. It's a very worrying road, I think this goes down. So anyway, over we go to Warwickshire World. So, Warwickshire County Council reform, of course, reassure the LGBTQ plus staff over flag policy, but now rival councillors launch challenge. So the cabinet now approved a policy that states that the England, the UK, and the county flags will now be flown from the 3 flagpoles outside Shire Hall now as a matter of course. There is, of course, scope for royal flags and one representing the armed forces to be flown, but any others must now be given the approval of the chair of the council, a position currently held by Reform UK's Councillor Ed Harris. So, as you can see instantly, they have stripped a power and they have given it from a non-political, officer to someone who is blatantly apolitical. And obviously, we can see which way he is going to go. This now, of course, follows a public storm in which the leader of the council, George Finch, asked now for the Progress Pride flag up for Pride Month to be taken down. The chief executive, Morgan Fogarty, had said that historically had now the discretion, of course, to make a decision on the flags. Refused and then quickly became the focus of criticism from Reform UK's Zia Youssef and party leader Nigel Farage. A subsequent protest outside Shire Hall currently includes calls for the Pride flag to continue to be flown, and the Liberal Democrats announced that they have now launched a call-in, a process now available for councillors unhappy with decisions. It places now the decision very much on hold until a scrutiny panel now looks into it and decides on whether to ask the cabinet to reconsider its decision. So the flag policy, currently introduced by the portfolio holder of customer and localities, Councillor Mick Barnester, who advocated having now a clear and consistent and lawful position, reflects that Reform UK values of fairness, patriotism, and common sense. So instantly, this is very clear. They are making this very, very much. They want to make this a political issue. Like, oh yeah, we want this to reflect our values. Well, your values are not shared probably by everyone in this county. So instantly, you are saying that this is political. I also keep on pointing out, they keep on bringing this up every single time. You notice they are bringing the words lawful. This is, I think, to try and ward off any potential challenges in court by saying this. This is clear, consistent, and lawful. Interesting that every single time on every council, whenever they are making these types of decisions, they keep on bringing this up. Oh, it's lawful. This is a lawful decision. Very interesting that they keep on bringing that up. So he then, of course, addressed 2 submissions that he had received. One, of course, from Warwickshire Pride, and the other from Angela Dem, the co-chair of the Warwickshire County Council's LGBTQ+ staff network. The council, of course, did not publish either as part of their decision-making process. Warwickshire Pride published their request that the Pride flag should be included now as a matter of course, in recognition now of a marginalised and targeted group. The Local Democracy Reporting Service has also requested that it is now currently awaiting the staff network submission. Addressing it, Councillor Bannister said, "I'd like to reassure that Angela Dunn, who wrote to us, and all other staff that this policy does not in any way threaten your rights, protections, or standing in this organisation, at least not yet." He continued to say, it is not about, of course, undermining anyone's freedoms. It is about establishing order and fairness in a space that belongs to all people of Warwickshire. Then why are you taking this away from someone who was non-politically aligned, as their job entails them to be, to give it to someone who is politically aligned, who is going to make decisions based on his politics? That is not fair. Instantly. He continued to say, this would, of course, be discriminatory now to elevate one group above all others and grant it now a unique right to fly its flag above Shire Hall. That would not be equality. That would be privilege, and privilege is not what this council stands for. All they're asking is that their flag gets flown during a particular month. But even then, oh no. The horror. This is why I've always said this culture war nonsense rots people's brains, and you get councils who have honestly far more important things to be discussing. A situation like this that goes on. This is just a waste of councillors' time. If we're honest, there was nothing wrong with the way it was before. Reform UK just want to now start to rubber stamp, start to sort of push groups out. This is what they're doing. This is obvious what they are doing on this one. Anyway, responding, of course, to Warwickshire Pride, he then said, your organisation is entitled to the same rights as any other, no more, no less. You do not get automatic precedence, and you cannot demand it. They aren't demanding it. They are doing as you asked, making a request on this. He continued to say, too many groups across Warwickshire now face hardship, discrimination, and challenges. To give permanent precedence to one would be to push now others aside, which is basically what they are trying to do in this regard. He concluded with now an open invitation for anyone to apply to have their flag flown, that rival politicians question the motives behind the policy and now the process of how it will work, which is, again, where this needs to be pushed on. But I do like the fact they've now had an open invite for anyone to apply to have their flag flown. If you are a group in Warwickshire that particularly happens to have a flag, then I would just inundate them with every single request going. Just jam them up. Absolutely jam them up on that one. So, the deputy leader of the Labour group, Councillor John Harold, argued that decisions on any new policies should be taken by the whole council, not just the political group in charge. That could provide now a challenge with Reform UK, of course, running a minority administration. The lack of an outright majority, meaning that now other parties are able to club together and vote down proposals. We will sign a call-in for this because this policy is decided by council. Policy is implemented by cabinet, said Councillor Holland. I would not accept the policy as written because it is absolutely disgraceful, and the events and the backlash against Miss Fogarty, which happened earlier, over the flying now of the flags. We want something that takes politics out of this and that we can unite behind. We are here to celebrate community groups and now openness across the country. The process, the proposed policy simply isn't going to deliver that. And that is exactly the point, that this removes it from someone who was non-politically aligned, could not do anything when it comes to a regard of politics or anything like that. And all of a sudden, now hands it to the chairman, who is politically aligned. What party do you think he's going to favour? For example, what if Nigel Farage turns up? Are they going to fly a reform flag? Why not? Right? It's his decision now. You know, this opens up a huge can of worms. And the worrying thing is here, and I will keep on saying this, if they are willing to remove such a inconsequential power, basically so that they can play politics with it, what other powers might they then strip in the future of other council officers and staff? If they are willing to do it over something like this, what other powers might they then decide to take a grab for later down the line as well? This is a big can of worms they are opening. This is worrying. And the way in which I've looked at this policy, where it is written, this is intentionally written in a way that they can do that later down the line, potentially with other powers. That is worrying. That is incredibly worrying on this. Councillor Finch, who, of course, in recent press conferences publicly stated that he would not influence the decision on flag flying applications, argued that it was right that they should now be handled by the non-political element of the council, which again is laughable. Because it already was handled by the non-political element of the council. Arguing this is ridiculous. There was nothing wrong with the previous policy. It's they now want to play policy with it and politics with it. That's why they're handing it to the chairman, who, again, surprise, surprise, is Reform, who hasn't, by the way, gone against his own group so far. Gee, I wonder which side and which flags he's going to choose to fly. Anyway, the Liberal Democrat and council leader Jerry Roadhouse, of course, dismissed that. He said the chairman is a political appointee. The council votes for him. We all saw it happen. Don't give me that, he said. Yes, they try to find a balance, but at the end of the day, they belong to a political party and they vote for that political party. I have never seen a chairman go against their party in the council chamber anywhere. So don't give me that rubbish. He then referred to now an olive branch, where the Lib Dems had now requested that any decisions, particularly refusals, should be published showing the justification. And I think this is good. I think this, if this is going to go through, I think this is where you get them. Because now you go, you have to give justification. You can't just say no. They have to now say why they are justifying this not being done. And this is where you can really crucify them. Because any community group that says, you know, what, for example, what happens if, let's say, a Muslim group goes and say, oh, well, we'd like this flag flown on this particular day, holy day, etc. What if they then turn around and say, no, well, now you've got to try and justify why you might be refusing this group. Trust me, this is actually a very clever move. I think this move here by the Lib Dems, I think is very good. I think this is very, very good because this gets them later on. If this happens to go through, this is the amendment. This is the change you want in there. Making sure that they have to publish their refusals. They have to show their justifications. So anyway, back to this. He went on to say it now should be done in public, not behind the closed doors, with perhaps you, of course, the leader, sat next to him saying, oh, no, you can't do that, said the councillor. Something, a prospect that Councillor Finch laughed at. Roadhouse then continued, we don't know. There is no accountability about it. It sounds really nice and cuddly to say the chairman will do it because he's independent. Well, we don't know what happens behind that closed door. Again, good point on that one as well. Get them on that. Put that in there. Force them to publish their justifications. Because that then could become very embarrassing. And then it just shows you what they're playing politics over with this flag stuff. So, with the Lib Dems now confirming, of course, their call-in, it is now very likely that the relevant scrutiny panel will now be asked to discuss it and either decide to let the decision stand or to ask the cabinet now to reconsider. The option now of calling into a meeting, now a full council, can now be instigated if the monitoring officer, Sarah Duxby, believes the original decision clashes with the council's policy or budget framework, but on the face of it, that escalation looks very unlikely, and there was no existing, of course, flag policy to clash with. Because prior to this, you didn't need one. you just didn't need one before Reform UK decided, oh, we're going to use this and start playing politics with it. Which this is what all this nonsense is about. It is culture war posturing at the end of the day, but it sets a very dangerous precedent. Because if they are willing to strip a council officer of this power because they don't like their decision-making process, what other powers might then they decide to strip from other council officers going further down the road? So, as always, let me know what you think down below. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.